Let's talk about all of the Easter eggs in the new Across the Spider-Verse trailer, because there are a lot. First up, Miles says, "I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man," which is a nod to the first movie when everybody else gave their introductions and said, "I'm the one and only Spider-Man." Second, we get our first good look at the Spot, which was marketed to be this movie's villain, but it's looking more like he might just be some kind of low-life criminal who doesn't really know how to crime. Now, there were a lot of rumors saying that Jason Schwartzman will be playing the Spot, and it looks like they're true based on the voice acting in this trailer. We get a better look at Spider-Woman, who I didn't realize in the first trailer, but she's actually pregnant. Now, this is actually a nod to Spider-Woman Jessica Drew being pregnant in the comics for a good while. Next, we get a couple of first looks at Hobie Brown, aka Spider-Punk. And there aren't just like one or two shots of him, he's all over this movie. So it's looking like we're kind of scrapping the team that we had in the first movie, including Penny Parker and Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Ham, and we're kind of replacing them with Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Woman, Spider-Punk, and Spider-Man India. I actually have a video where I talk about Pavitra Prabhakar or Spider-Man India's backstory on my TikTok. We get a couple of instances of seeing Spider-Man PS4, including the pointing scene, which we've seen in No Way Home, the 60s Spider-Man cartoon, and now we're finally seeing in the Into the Spider-Verse cinematic universe. Speaking of Spider-Man PS4, we're also seeing a security guard Spider-Man, which may be a reference to Spider-Cop, which was in the PS4 Spider-Man game, if any of you have played that. Other than Spider-Man PS4, we do get to see Spider-Man manga. One of my favorite Spider-Man costumes, the Bombastic Bagman, is actually going to be in this movie, and I'm super excited about that one. We also get another canon to the comic Spider-Man, Werewolf Spider-Man, who's from Earth 7085. This one's just going to be wild. We also see Miguel or Spider-Man 2099 reference Doctor Strange and the nerd from Earth 1999-99, which is actually what the MCU's original universe number was. So, yeah, this is kind of him making fun of Tom Holland, who's probably in the movie. Because in the international trailers that were released, we see that they have a clip from each one of the Spider-Man live-action movies, including Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland. So it's kind of hinting that they may be involved in this film, but probably not in live action. We get our first look at Mayday Parker, who is canonically in the comics Peter Parker and Mary Jane's child, who also has spider powers. But this time they're giving her powers as a baby. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, there's a brief second here in the trailer where we see what looks like Peter B. Parker laying dead. I'm a little confused because I feel like they wouldn't do this to his character right after he had a kid, but it's possible that it is him. Speaking of deaths, we also see Miles's dad, Jefferson Davis, potentially falling off of a building and maybe alluding to him dying in some way, because not only him falling happens, but there's also this short, like 2-second clip of an explosion happening right next to a bunch of cop cars, and if you remember the Spider-Man PS4 game, you know what could be happening there. We then get a first look at a newer character in the Spider-Verse, Spider-Bite, who is pretty new to the comics, but is going to be really interesting with her technological know-how. We also get this shot of Gwen falling from a pretty high height and Miles potentially saving her. And I just think it's kind of crazy that Marvel has made me watch Gwen fall to her potential death so many times. Miles' backpack, when he visits his guidance counselor, actually has a Black Lives Matter button on it. And speaking of other social justice movements, in Gwen's room we can see that there's a flag above her door that says "Protect Trans Kids." Now, this could be nothing, but Miles's guidance counselor is named Ms. Weber, which I just think like they named them Weber because it's Spider-Man, come on. I'm also loving the consistency that we're having within each universe, such as this Polaroid that Gwen has. that looks very watercolory with like the strokes that it has on it, just like Gwen and Gwen's universe does. Now, there's a lot of spider people in this photo alone, but the two that I've kind of picked out just from this first look are the Spider-Man manga, and then we also see Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman. Now, as we get a little bit closer, we also see a robotic type Spider-Man, but it looks like it's a younger kid, so I want to say that this could be Amadeus Cho. And then behind him, if you look kind of like right up at the top, you can see a blue and red spider person, presumably, but they have little wings on their head, so I think it might be like a Spider-Man Captain America hybrid, which that's pretty cool. We then get Ben Reilly, who is a clone of Peter Parker. A couple times in the trailer, we get to see this guy who looks like Spider-Man if he was blonde and wore a Letterman as like his costume. So I think this actually could be a universe where Flash Thompson is Spider-Man, which is really cool. So in the tagged scene at the end of the trailer, we're in a therapist's office, and in the top right, you can actually see a Rorschach painting, but it's actually of a spider. And we know from the first movie that things in Miles' universe are just a little bit different than ours. Like in our universe, Chance the Rapper wears a hat that always has the number 3 on it. But in Miles' universe, as we saw in the first film, Chance the Rapper's hat has a number 4 on it. So that's why the popular Supreme sticker that everyone has in our universe is actually sashimi or sushi in Japanese in Miles' universe. Now, keeping with the idea that things in Miles' universe are just a little bit different than ours, we see Miles is wearing a basketball jersey that says Brooklyn 42. Now, 42 is a huge number to Miles Morales. In the comics and the movies, the spider that bit him is from Alchemax, and it's number 42. We see it in the first film 3 different times. We see it on the spider, we see it in the atoms, and then we also see it when Miles falls off the building and the numbers 4 and 2 fall next to him. Now, the number 42 was meant to be number 42 in the comic book and then subsequently in the movie because it represented Jackie Robinson, who, if you don't know, is a very famous baseball player who was a person of color in a very predominantly white industry who broke a lot of barriers. So Miles Morales is a person of color in a predominantly white industry, the superhero comic book world, who is breaking a lot of barriers. And lastly, we have Spider-Horse, who has been seen in many different universes, and about 3 or 4 different iterations. So there's one with a Spider Knight, there's one with a Spider Cowboy kind of hero called Webslinger, and then there's one that has 8 legs and a spider cape. Yeah, it's kind of a thing, but it's kind of just funny that there's multiple of them. All right, that's it. Did you catch any Easter eggs I didn't? And if so, put it down in the comments. Either way, what was your favorite Easter egg in this trailer? With great power comes great responsibility, so make sure you use your power to do your responsibility by liking this video, because you sat all the way through it, and subscribe if you like content like this. Excelsior!